And we're back at it again with another exciting review for WWE NXT this week. I am your host, Mikey, and welcome to the Bi-Conics YouTube channel, where we talk about everything and anything all professional wrestling, and we are the most professional, unprofessional folks on the internet. This is gonna if you have been subscribed to us for a while now, you know how crazy we can get. As I mentioned at the top, I am back here with another NXT review this week. But, Mikey, you might be asking yourself, you're not reviewing this one by yourself. And that is very true, because as you can see, I am not alone in this endeavor. I am going to let my new co-host introduce himself and kind of, just let him have the floor. So, my friend, take it away.
Hey, all you awesome wrestling fans out there. I am Will, the Halfling Wizard. It's been a long time since I've been anywhere near the wrestling world. Not since probably the late 1980s. I used to watch wrestling with my father, and when my father passed away, I just sort of stopped. And Mikey here sort of has brought me back into the fold. So we're going to see how this goes. So this was my first wrestling match or event that I have watched since the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, so yeah. So it was very interesting to see the juxtaposition between when I used to watch wrestling and what wrestling has become. So this review will be fun. And there's a lot that has changed. And there's a lot that hasn't changed, actually. There's, it's a little bit here and there. So that's me, and I hope I can do it justice. Like I said, it's been well over 20 years. Over 30 years. I'm going to say 30 because it's been 30. Or has it been longer than that? Maybe 40. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been here. So, but I'm happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have you on, Will. This is great. So, for unless certain things happen, just as a quick update, Will is going to officially not only be my NXT co-host for however long he chooses to want to be my co-host, but he is also now officially a part of the Bi-Conics family. So now we have a 7th member. So get used to it, internet, because you're going to see the 7 of us a lot in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be such a fun time. But as I mentioned, I thought about this and I figured, what is the best thing that I could get Will to watch in order to reintroduce him to the world of the current wrestling product? And then I looked at everything. I'm like, AEW, I feel like would probably fit that niche because they're the closest to ECW and 90s wrestling. But then I'm like, well, yes, the wrestling's gonna be good, but I was like, let's not jump in quite yet. We'll work. There's levels to this. And then I looked at WWE and cried a little bit. I'm like, I'm not subjecting him to Raw or SmackDown just yet. And then I'm like, you know what? NXT's kind of got it going on right now, and it's really easy to introduce other people to it. So let's go with NXT. Thus, why Will is here. So Will joins us in a very interesting position because this NXT is technically the go home show, as we use in the professional wrestling world, where it's the final television show before the major pay-per-view. But in this case, this is the final show before the next major TV special for NXT. So this was the go home show for NXT Heatwave, which is going to happen next Tuesday, which I'm excited to cover. I'm interested to get Will's perspective on all these characters that came across our television screens because I loved the cheesiness of professional wrestling, but we'll talk about it. So let's just jump straight into it. We open up NXT this week where we started with an NXT Tag Team Championship match where we have the very stereotypical Guido-esque crime mob family with Tony D'Angelo and Stax representing the family, taking on the closest you're going to get to John Wayne Gacy without all the Gacy bits of it. In this cult that is the Schism, but the Schism's being represented by the Dyad. So this is for there was a lot that went on this match. Like, forget the wrestling. There was a lot of theater involved. But the family defending their titles against the Dyad for the NXT Tag Team Championship match. Let's just get into it. So, obviously, in-ring work. I like both of these teams. The family just recently got these tag titles off of another tag team called Gallus at the Great American Bash pay-per-view, so they've only really had him for a couple weeks. The Dyad has been feuding with the family on and off for a little bit, but, now they find themselves just given this match. The wrestling itself was fine, but all the theatrics that happened outside of it was even more entertaining. So,
Agreed.
yeah, so I mean, if it wasn't obvious enough, the family does pick up the victory here. They are still your NXT Tag Team Champions, which is to be expected because it would kind of be silly for them to lose the title so early in their reign. But the result of this match happened because of two different things. As we get to the finishing sequence, we have Miss Ivy Nile come out, and of course, the Schism blocks her from getting into the ring, which gives the chance for two hooded masked individuals to take out the Dyad and allow the family to pin them for the win. Before I break into the story bits, because I have a feeling I know who are under those masks, which I'll get into the storytelling aspects. But Will, what'd you think of this opening match and theatrics?
Well, the funny thing about it is as I pulled it up, the link that you sent me, I pulled it up, and you have to go through all the stuff. And I got on there and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I caught it as they were starting, and I saw the guys in the yellow masks. I think the very first question I sent was, who are the guys in the yellow masks? Because again, I don't know any of these people coming into this. I don't know any of them. And you told me it was the Schism, and I was just like, what in the world is that? But we'll get back to that. So I want to know who those two were. I mean, they were wearing the masks. So who could they be? I mean, and I will have to say that the theatrics of this whole first match were quite hilarious. As a theater professor, watching this, I mean, there's a lot of types happening. Not stereotypes per se, but like types of characters happening. And it was kind of fun to watch. And I think Mikey and I was texting him a lot through chat with questions and comments. And one of my favorite characters was the guy without the mask and the Schism guy. The man with the beard and everything. I don't know who he is. I don't know his name or anything. But
The one with the sunglasses.
Yeah, but it was his facial expressions that kept getting me, and they were all like these super exaggerated looks, and I was like, "What? Who are you?" I was just like, "What?" I want to know what his deal is. Like, what is his deal? The wrestling was great. Don't get me wrong; it really was. It was a great match, but I want to know more about that dude. I mean, and I'm one of those people. I'm a theater person that loves tertiary characters, like secondary and third level characters, and I don't know who he. So you tell me, who is that dude? Like, what's his role?
Okay, so you will come to find that I love explaining characters to people, no matter how silly or crazy it is, because professional wrestling to me boils down to in-ring performance, actual on the mic skills, and then the theatrical storytelling of it. So, the Schism is made up of four individuals currently. The guy in the sunglasses, that is the leader of this whole entire faction. His name is Joe Gacy.
Of course it is.
Yes, of course it is. So, the Schism is basically everything about a cult that you can possibly think of stereotypical wise, and that's it. But this is,
Okay.
and because Joe Gacy is kind of, well, obviously pulling inspiration from actual John Wayne Gacy, kind of. Um, Joe Gacy's whole thing is that he wants to make the world a better place. Now, I will admit, while I'm still kind of iffy on this whole entire faction, I will tell you this gimmick was a lot worse before it what you saw, because before this, before he became cult leader, Joe Gacy was the positivity, call it like using the term everyone's too much of a snowflake gimmick, and I was like, and I'm so happy he dropped that real quick.
Yeah.
So he's the leader.
Wow.
He's the leader of Schism. The two that were wrestling in the ring for Schism, I hate the name change, Rip Fowler, and I'm blanking on the other one, because they were formerly known as Grizzled Young Veterans, the British tag team, and they were phenomenal. I still hate their name change, but they came in because they saw the light, so to speak. So they've been following.
Okay.
Now,
That's really
yes, so next to Joe Gacy, like on the Schism side of things, the girl with the kind of red hair and the contact, her name is Ava Rain. So she's the newest person. She just made her debut on NXT television back in March. Now, fun fact, Ava Rain, the actual person, she is a she is a generational wrestler, which means that she's had family in WWE before.
Right.
Now, the rest of the guys, we love her, and we're happy to see her get more screen time, but we do all agree that she's still training, because that's what NXT is for, is developmental. But fun fact, Ava Rain is the actual daughter of the charismatic one himself, The Rock. So that's The Rock's daughter.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
I know. And so I was just like, it's been like the worst kept secret that she was going to NXT to train like all those years ago. And now she's finally making her debut. And actually, at the end of this, when we talk about Heatwave, they just announced a match with her in it for next week. So that should be fun. So that's the Schism in its kind of whole entire thing. They are a faction that believes that they can make the world a better place. And it's just like everybody belongs underneath the tree and one root, kind of like a singular entity kind of thing. It's silly, but I dig it so much.
That's cool. No, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Now let's get to the other side. So, like I said, Ivy Nile comes out. So Ivy Nile belongs in a faction known as Diamond Mine. Their whole thing is kind of like they are professional wrestlers, kind of similar to actual collegiate and Olympic wrestlers. Like they all wear singlets. They're about like keeping the tradition of like pure wrestling alive in a sense. So Ivy comes out to distract Joe and Ava, which allows the other two masked men. So I think the other two masked men happen to be the Creed brothers, who are part of Diamond Mine. So I gotta quickly back this up because there's a lot of context. So the Dyad and the Creed brothers, on the 4th of July episode of NXT, they had a loser leaves NXT match where the loser of the match has to leave NXT. So the Creed brothers lost that after Rock's daughter causes a distraction on the apron, which causes the Creeds to lose. So they've been gone. But now within the last couple of weeks, they've been like, Joe Gacy has gotten paranoid because things are happening in the Schism, like things are going out of place. The Creeds cut a promo from the video, from the Titantron, that they're on vacation, that they're not there. And basically, I think Diamond Mine's playing mind games. So I think the Creed brothers were the ones who cost the Dyad the match. And I think eventually we're going to get a rematch where they are allowed to come back or something of that sort. And I said in a previous review, what's the point of a loser leaves match if they don't leave?
I know, if they just come back. Okay.
I thought the Creeds were going to main roster. I was like, well, I guess I was wrong.
It sounds like a ploy to get you to come back, which is legit. It happens in every generation of wrestling. So you always have that, oh no, they're gone for good. And all of a sudden, like, they show up again. It's like, oh, okay, you're not really gone. I figured as much. So, okay, well, that whole thing was was interesting. But I will have to say that I was fighting commercials during that whole freaking match. The streaming, the thing I was using, the commercials overdid the match, and I was trying to get it to go away, and so I missed a lot of that.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you, Will, like that is the biggest pet peeve we all have, is like whether we're watching it on the computer or we watched it on television like I did. I hate the picture in picture where they reduce the size of the match and then all we get is commercials. I'm like, I hate picture in picture, and it's not just NXT, Raw, SmackDown. All the AEW shows do that. The only two that don't do it is Ring of Honor and Impact. Impact Wrestling will go to commercial, but then we come right back to the match. Like, there's no picture in picture. I hate it.
Oh wow, yeah, that was like dumb. That was dumb. And because I couldn't. I was like, okay, because yeah, it like reduced the match, and I was all like squinting at the screen because I'm old and my eyes don't work well. So I was like looking, and I was like, and then all I could hear is like some woman talking about whatever the hell she was talking about, and I was just like, wait, what? And it was distracting me, so I didn't get. It sucks. I didn't get a chance to actually watch the whole match. And that kind of bummed me out at first. But then the thing happened with the masked folks and the distraction. Because when she came out, funny thing, what was her name again? I'm sorry, I missed her name.
Ivy Nile. So Ivy
Niles. So when Ivy came out, I truly thought that she was about to whoop some butt. I literally thought she was about to take that man in the center and like whoop him down, and I was there for it. I was totally there for it. But I was like, okay. And I was like, then when she stood there and she was all like, bleh, and I was like, oh, she's a distraction, isn't she? And then suddenly, boom, here come these two guys out of the stands. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go. I like this. Okay. Then I got back into it. But I really liked that match. It was good. It was fun. It was entertaining. And it was cheesy as hell. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Oh my goodness.
Truly.
Yeah. NXT has a lot of cheese, but it is one of my favorite things. But ultimately, I thought the match itself was good. And what I did appreciate is one thing that NXT seems to do very well that Raw and SmackDown are having trouble doing is like, as crazy as these stories are, at least we're progressing stories and we're progressing feuds. So eventually we're gonna get, if not soon, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if we got the Dyad or the Schism versus Diamond Mine in some sort of match. If not on television, I would love to see it at NXT's No Mercy pay-per-view in September. I'm so excited.
The other thing I noticed is that what I will call stage violence, all of the violence in it, has gotten a lot safer over the years. At least it looks safer. You could tell when they're hitting, they're like literally nowhere near them. I mean, it's like at times you're like, oh, okay, that was a stage hit. And all the acrobatics and everything. I mean, you can tell it's choreographed and it's great. It makes for great entertainment. When we're watching the combat sequence on stage, we're like, we know they're not really gonna like kill each other, but it's fun to watch them playing swords or fist fight and things like that. And so I really enjoyed watching that aspect of it because I was curious as to how different it would be. Because back in my day, even though it was staged, quote unquote, people died. I mean, people died in the ring. I mean, it was like, because, something went wrong, you broke a neck. I mean, it happened. So it was neat to watch the evolution of that and how, even though it looked brutal, it looked safe. And that's from a theater standpoint. From someone watching that sort of stage violence. So I really kind of appreciated that because I can't tell you how many times when I was a kid and those wrestlers would like come out with like broken noses, bloodied, fake flesh ripped from them. I'm like, Wow. Okay. I didn't think it was supposed to be that realistic.
You know,
And
go ahead.
no, this is a, and now it is both realistic and unrealistic, and I kind of like that. I like that the wrestlers are safe. That is my big thing. I'm really glad that they're taking it more, the idea of he's staying safe more serious. Oh, excuse me. Because you never want to see someone get like paralyzed because of something. Like
No,
really paralyzed, not faux paralyzed.
no. Yeah, WWE recently had something like that happen. The person is doing okay, but yeah, uh, somebody broke their neck on live television earlier last year, and it was really bad.
Ooh,
And I'm just like, WWE has WWE's model of wrestling has a lot of their talent like learn how to do things safely. So it's like you said, WWE has more staged like sets of moves and scenes, I guess is what the best way. AEW kind of has that, but AEW is the closest. It's balls to the wall wrestling where anything and everything happens, and it's more entertaining, but a lot of their roster tends to get injured a lot,
right.
unfortunately. And so NXT
Um,
is teaching the next generation of stars to kind of, if they want a lasting career, they can't be
right.
doing crazy move sets.
I mean, that's like I guess that is it AEW that you said that was like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to me that seems more like MMA style, where it's like if I break your nose, it's okay. It's and I'm just like, but is it really? This
AEW
is
is where you will go if you want to watch somebody bleed, because John Moxley always bleeds at least every week on the match on
right.
AEW. I was like,
And,
okay,
and that's
sure.
cool. And I guess that's sort of like I guess it sort of like feeds that animalistic side of human nature. But as an educator who like educates like young people, like college age people, I don't want to see them get hurt. You know, so I totally appreciated the true sort of dedication to the stage combat. So that was one of the things that I was really kind of like, good job, guys.
Right.
Good job.
So
But I will say this real quick. I'm sorry. I
go
will
for
say
it.
this though. When we're talking about stage violence, I will say that in the women's matches, that looked a lot more realistic than in the men's matches. Like there was a couple of times I was like, oh my gosh, I think she really hit her. Oh my goodness, I think it was like, but she didn't, because if she had, then there would be blood streaming down her face. But I just thought it was that their sort of stage violence was so much more realistic, and that was kind of exciting actually. I mean, I knew it was safe, but it just seemed more. And I don't know if that's because that's a that's a sort of male chauvinistic thing that the men are like, oh, if we did that, we'd kill each other, or if it's like, or the women are like, we don't care, we want to just like pound one another. I don't know what it is, but I appreciated both of them. But I do think that the women's matches tended to be a little more violent, even though they were shorter, which kind of was disappointing. There seemed to be a little more violent.
Right.
So,
And we'll get to some of those women's matches in a little bit. So, of course, one of the other things I love is that with the weekly television shows, we get vignettes and backstage moments. So, as soon as this match was over, like we were talking about earlier, we get a little video vignette with Eddie Thorpe, and he kind of talks about, his heritage. So, I have to be completely honest, I needed some research done, because I was just like, oh, he's a Native American like wrestling character. I'm like, please actually be Native American, because WWE does not have the best track record when it comes to creating characters from other like ethnicities and groups and minorities. I'm like, oh please, and then I find out, oh no, Eddie Thorpe is actually Native American. I'm like, woo, we dodged a bullet right there. Eddie Thorpe has become one of my personal favorites as of late, only because his whole entire aesthetic is, I was like, I can kind of get behind this, and then his in-ring ability is also phenomenal as well. But in this vignette, Eddie Thorpe kind of walks through the process of how, he personally heals from injuries and things like that. Like he channels, he talks his ancestors from nature. And then the other way is he does like the traditional like Native American dances with all the getup and everything. And it was nice to see him kind of share that on television with everyone. I was like, you just solidified yourself as why I even love you even more. I love Eddie, and this will not be the last we see of him tonight because we'll talk about him a little bit later. And then this jumps into this is the through line for the whole entire episode where we keep going back and forth to see Carmelo Hayes with somebody backstage. So Carmelo is signing like autographs, and Wes Lee comes up and just reminds him that you better be ready because you're not going to sign these for long. And Carmelo's like, you just need to handle your business later, and I'll see whoever wins next week at Heat Wave. And then I'll just throw this in here, even though it didn't happen till later. We got a similar thing, but tall, like Dijak, who I love his entrance because I'm like, Sin City is so great. But he does the same thing, and Carmelo's just tired of both of them. It's like, just fight already. I'll talk to one of you later. And, that's what they kind of do. I was like, I know it's a number one contenders match, but we didn't really need two separate things. You could have had it done all at once, but it is what it is. It's fine. So we'll...
Yeah, the funny thing about that when Carmelo was like signing his autographs and all that stuff, and Wes came over and blah, blah, blah. Again, here I am, tertiary characters. The two security guards behind him, I swear they were chatting each other up. They were flirting with each other. I don't care what anybody says. I have never seen two background characters so engaged with one another like those two were. They distracted me. I literally, they were, Carmelo was talking, Wes came in and was doing something. I don't even know because my eyes went right to these two security guards in the background. And I was like making up little scenarios for them. Like they were like asking each other out. I mean, that's what it looked like. It's like, hey man, you want to get a drink after this? And they were literally, if anybody out there, if you want, I'm sure you all watched it. If you saw them, they do it again later on too. Whenever we are at they're at Carmella's table or whatever the hell, it's the same two guys right behind him, and they are like looking at each other and smiling and just chatting with each other, and I'm just like, something's going on back there. Something's going on. And they're upstaging you, Carmella. I'm sorry, but I don't know at all what you said because I was watching the security guards in the background.
So if it wasn't clear to to our Bi-Conics army, like, I mean, come on. We've explained why we called ourselves the Bi-Conics because two out of us fall underneath that persuasion of the bi in Bi-Conics. But, we're also a plethora of other folks. We will ogle our wrestlers and background characters. Doesn't matter who.
Yes, I am. For clarification, I am not bisexual.
He is not.
I am full on G, baby.
Yes. And
capital G.
This is gonna. I love this already. This is gonna be great.
And and I'm here to tell you and rate the hotness of these people because, yeah. And I will have to going back to a previous. Eddie Thorpe is a hottie. I was like, I think the minute they showed his little vignette, I sent a message to Mikey, and it was like, I'm Native. And he's like, Native American? I was like, yes. And he's like, oh, that's probably Eddie Thorpe. And I was like, I Googled, and I was like, it sure is. And he's gorgeous. No, I do have to say, I would warn him about wearing hoop earrings in the ring because those things get ripped out. Oh my goodness. I've had a hoop earring ripped out of my ear before. Not fun. Not fun.
Oh,
so anyway, back to Carmella and Wes and
yeah. So we'll talk about the culmination of all this when we get to the actual match. But we were talking about women and women's wrestling because the next match we had later in the show, we saw Blair Davenport taking on Dana Brooke. And yes, this match was short, but listen, Blair Davenport can do no wrong in my eyes. Like, she is one of my favorite female wrestlers that from the UK wrestling scene. So I will say, like, one of the reasons I love Blair is because, and I've said this on other reviews too, depending on where wrestlers like did most of their wrestling before coming to WWE, you could tell the style of wrestling based on where they are. Because UK is more, it's like unrefined, if is the best way to put it, which we kind of saw, but like in a good way. So with Blair, she's more hard hitting than anything. And then Japanese wrestling is very strong style, so lots of kicks, lots of chops, things like that. Obviously, luchadors, Mexico, lucha libre, high flying stuff. And then, of course, American wrestling is very like sequence heavy, where they kind of have certain spots where they do the big moves to get the audience going nuts, but then the transitions is like planned a little bit and things like that. But love Blair Davenport. I love seeing Dana Brooke in NXT. Main roster Raw and SmackDown weren't doing anything with her. And this kind of I thirst for violence character she's got going on is kind of interesting.
Was she the one with short blonde hair?
Yes, that would be Dana.
Is that the one that was like that screamed all the time?
Well, actually, I think you're thinking of. I think you're thinking of Thea.
Later.
Thea comes later.
That's later. Okay. That one I loved. I mean, this one I did too. I literally when the women were coming out, I sent another message going, "Girl fight tonight," and I was super excited because again, back in my day, the women were not wrestlers. They were like arm candy, really. I mean, that's really what they were, decoration. And when you got later in the 80s towards the 90s, that's when the women started kind of, I'm getting an Amber Alert. Sorry, everybody. Somebody got kidnapped. Like back in my day, like I said, they were more for decoration, but it was later in the 80s, early 90s that the women actually started to fight. And that was exciting. And then of course my dad passed away and then I sort of stopped. But I'm glad to see that the women are still going, like, and even better so now. They've got their own thing, and that's really, I really love that. Because again, like I said, back in my day, they were just decoration. Now they're like part of the mechanism, and I love that. And I will honestly tell you that I think their matches could go longer. And I think they don't go longer because I think people don't think that people want to watch them fight, which I think is bull. Because there's nothing more exciting than watching two women fight. Truly. If you've ever been out in public and two women go at it, everybody's standing around watching that with their phones out and putting that stuff on YouTube, TikTok, and whatever else you got. Because it's going to be brutal. And it was, their fight was so much, that's what I was saying earlier, that was so much more intense than the men's. The men's was more like theatrical. It's like they were sort of like peacocks, showing off their feathers. And the women were like, I want to pull your hair out and I'm going to poke your eyes out with my boots. And then I'm going to spit in your face. And then I'm going to throw Coke down your throat or something. I don't know. They were literally like, I'm going to rip your weave off and feed it to you. I mean, it was like that intense. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so here for this. So I love it.
Oh, you are in perfect company, my friend, because as I said to you when we were texting back and forth, all of us here at the Bi-Conics, we're big supporters of women's wrestling. And I personally prefer women's matches over the men's half the time because I think they end up being better when they're booked right. But that's a different story and that's for a different topic. But I agree. I wish that the women's matches did go a little bit longer. But honestly, given the fact that as a consensus, outside of Impact Wrestling, NXT actually gives multiple women's matches and not just one a week, or even if we get that across the other brands half the time, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But
they were far more fun to watch. Like from a fighting standpoint. They were far more fun to watch. The men's, I think, and this is just me, of course, again, I'm coming into this brand new again. The men's uh, matches are more like visually fun to watch. Like, it's just they're very theatrical, and the women are very much like, I'm going to kick your butt.
They're
It's
more
like,
grounded in reality,
yeah,
as like
yeah, yeah. It's like they have like I believe that the women actually have beef with each other. Like I truly was like, okay, these two women do not like each other. And with the men, it's more like, hey, I've got to do this because we got to put on a show. And because it's more theatrical, because you got the guys, they do all the stuff and it's whatever, and it's fun to watch. But I love watching the women fight. I love it because it's just to me it just feels really what wrestling used to be in my day. And I think it's funny that I get that from the women's fights. So
yeah.
yeah.
I will always love Dana and Blair separately, but putting them together was a lot of fun. And again, character development, because the last couple of weeks Dana has shifted in the dynamic of her character, where now she's like, you know what, I kind of like these big violent type of matches. Let me see if I can continue. She calls it killer instinct. I'm like, girl, we're just out here looking for adrenaline rushes, but that's okay, whatever you want to call it, I guess. But Blair picks up the victory here. I'm happy to see that she's getting wins and she's still looking strong, because she did lose her match against Roxanne at the Great American Bash pay-per-view. Which, by the way, if you want to see women fight, that was a Weapons Wild match. So basically anything went. They went through tables. There were chairs. There was a cowbell with rope. There was a Cataline branding iron because they were in Texas. Like I'm gonna send you this link to this match later.
Well, didn't someone who was it that grabbed the round bell in this one? Remember they grabbed the bell. They were going to hit somebody with it. Wasn't that one of the women's?
Maybe, I think so.
I think that was the next one.
It was probably the second one, because that one.
Girl.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that one, but so at this point of the night, this is when you sent me the text. You're just like, who's this dude with Drew Gulak? I'm like, oh, that's Charlie Dempsey. That's William Regal's son. And you're like, yeah, he needs a haircut.
Yeah, he looked up in there looking like a secondhand Carrot Top. I was just like who are you? All I could do is watch his hair move around. I was just like, you're distracting me from what I'm trying to watch. Can you please either put a hat on or go get yourself a haircut? Because was it Charlie Dempsey? Was that his name?
Yeah, Charlie Dempsey was the one that needed a haircut. And then in this match, we saw Drew Gulak taking on Trick Williams. And
real quick, back in the Dana fight.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Dana fight. Her friend that was in there with her,
Kaylani Jordan, yeah,
she looked like she was plotting revenge. I mean, it was great. Just her look was like she was like in her mind. She was like, "Bitch, I'm gonna mess you up. When you least expect it, I'm gonna be hiding in your closet." It's like all in her face. I mean, she was like, I was like, ooh. She kind of scared me a little bit. I was like, ooh, girl, you better walk away, because she's got something. She's hiding something. It's always the quiet ones. But she was. The other thing I have to think that one of the things I think is hilarious is the women wrestlers have those long fingernails, and not a single one of them broke one in a wrestling match. I'm like, girl had nails out to here, and she's all like clickety clickety clickety, and look at my manicure is perfect. And I was like,
that's a talent in itself.
I was like, girl, what you doing?
Oh man, it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, I think this is also the point of the night. You're just like, ooh, Trick Williams, he kind of cute. And I'm like, yeah,
Trick Williams is cute. But I found a lot of them quite cute. I was kind of surprised, actually.
You were surprised there were a lot of hot people.
Yeah, I really was. I mean, back, again, in my day, back in the old days, those were like men which is, my personal favorite. But there were a lot of really good looking men in it. Like, what was it? Dempsey? Was that his name?
Well, Charlie Dempsey was the one that needed a haircut.
No, it's okay. That wasn't him then.
It might have been Damon Kemp if that was the one, because Damon was there with Drew and Charlie in this match too, because he's like hanging around.
That was the black man, right? It was a black man, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, he was fine. I was just like, and it may have been in the way the lights were hitting him. I don't know, but I was just like, hello, you're not my type, but I want you to be now. It's like, I mean, truly, I mean, he was gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, buddy, but you were fine.
But honestly, this match served its purpose that it needed to, because Trick has a match next week at Heatwave versus Ilya Dragunov. So winning over Drew is fine, but also it kind of continued from what happened last week, because this match occurred because Drew and Charlie and Damon, because Trick Williams was attached to Carmelo, like they were inseparable. But Trick's like, hey, I need to prove myself to the NXT audience and to the rest of the locker room that I'm not just a sidekick to you. And so he's like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to face the baddest dude in NXT right now to prove a point. And I'm like, nobody turned on anybody. There was no like backstabbing, which I was appreciative, because I hate the wrestling trope of when they got to split factions or tag teams, somebody's got to be the bad guy and backstab somebody.
So I think it was Trick Williams. He's a black man, right?
Yes, he's the one who faced Drew during this match.
Okay, I think that's the guy I'm talking about.
Yes,
that was all like, I was all like, ooh, I feel a little flustered. Yes, and then there was I think it was in a vignette or a cutscene. Drew McIntyre, the Scottish Warrior.
Oh, probably when they were showing commercials for yeah.
He can wrestle me any day.
Listen, you're not the only one. A bunch of us are ogling Drew McIntyre.
He can put me on my back, and yeah, I'm all there for it. Put me to the mat.
Yes.
Count me out.
It's like, oh my goodness. So after this, okay. So, I have let it be known on this review, for NXT that, because next up was the Baron Corbin and Von Wagner like in-ring segment, and this is the point where you're just like, oh, this Von Wagner's kind of hot. Oh, he sounds like a low intelligence barbarian from TNT.
Yes. Oh my God. He was standing there, and he was the one that was all quiet, right? And he had the manager that was
Robert Stone is his manager. So Baron begins this, and he's talking, and he's kind of going over everything. And then Robert Stone, the manager, and Von Wagner come out. Okay, so like, we're trying to stay monetized here, but last week I had to pause because I was cracking up laughing, because the catchphrase that Von is trying to, utilize here, I was like, sir, I need you. You just needed to look up Urban Dictionary real quick to check to see if this is what you wanted to use, because he's like, somebody's about to get tabled. And then I was dying of laughter, because if you go to Urban Dictionary and you look up what that actually means, like, I'm sure you know.
Oh my God. Is that really what? Is that really? That's what he wants to use as his tagline?
But see, I don't think he did the research, though, because if he did, I don't think he would have. So I found it so hilarious that this is what we're still doing. And I'm like, WWE creative, or if Vaughn was the one who decided to go with this, somebody needed to do their research, because, sir, being tabled is not what you think it means.
No, it is not.
And take it from this. Yes, take it from this bisexual man, and then my gay bestie.
I mean, I'm not saying that I would say no to it.
Of course not. But
I mean, if that's what he means, then table away, baby.
But
if it's not what you mean, you might want to rethink that.
Probably. But yeah, so I have never seen the quickest change before, because so Vaughn begins to speak and he begins to retort and take digs at Baron Corbin, which ultimately this served the purpose to give them a reason why they're gonna fight each other next week. And I'm just like, Vaughn, I'm trying to like you. I know, like, you are using what actually happened to you as a kid, like part of your like underdog story with the whole entire like surgery to the cranium as a kid, and then they showed actual pictures of him. I'm like, you're exploiting my emotions here. Oh, it looks like my co-host froze, so I'll continue for a little bit. Uh, I don't know. I I want to like this. I think this feud is gonna be okay. If I'm being completely honest, I understand that this is what we want to do. This is what we want to go with. I have no idea what is happening with this feud, but ultimately, I think this feud is going to be fine. It's gonna be fine. So, while I wait for my co-host to come back to this realm and this earth, I'm just gonna continue. So, this first hour of NXT, it ends with a backstage. Oh man, and Will's gone because I want his thoughts about this because we talked about this a little bit. But to end this first hour of NXT, we get Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio backstage, all that jazz. And basically, this vignette serves its purpose of setting up a tag team match between Rhea and Dominic, taking on Dragon Lee and Lyra Valkyria next week at Heatwave.
Hey.
Hey, forget. I got to the best part. I was just talking about Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio.
Oh God.
So,
Oh God. Okay.
I said my piece. I went over what this was actually for. It's to set up this tag team match between Rhea and Dominic versus Dragon Lee and Lyra Valkyria at Heatwave next week. But you had some interesting thoughts on Rhea Ripley, and I want to put this disclaimer out there. Evan, if you are watching this, who is one of our other Bi-Conics hosts, I want you to plug your ears because I know how much you love mommy Rhea Ripley, but everyone has their own opinion. So, Will, just go for it.
Well, okay. All right. Well, when they came on, I was like, okay. First of all, what's his name? Dominic. Okay, he should never speak. She was cool. I liked her. Was it Rhea? Is that what it is? Rhea?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
as the name suggests,
like her a
Dominic Mysterio is the actual biological child of Rey Mysterio, so that is his son, but
Right.
continue.
And their relationship was really creepy. Like, I felt uncomfortable. I was literally like, I think somebody needs to call somebody because this is about to become illegal. And and then I was coping with it. I think I sent you a picture. Like, who are these two? I think is what I sent you.
Yep. And then I explained it, and you're just like,
I was like, they are gross. And it was only because of him though, because he kept calling her mommy, and I'm like, I literally want to throw up right now even talking about it. It was so gross. It was so gross. And if you guys could see the picture, the screenshot I sent, the way he is looking at her, it is gross. I literally feel like I need a shower just looking at the picture. I feel that gross. Now, she was cool. I liked her. Like, I liked her. I liked her part of this duo. But when he opened his mouth, I was like, I don't want you any. I need an adult. I truly felt like I needed an adult in the room.
well.
I was just like, oh dear God. And so now he may be like the loveliest human being in the world. He might be. But right here, in that moment, he was a creeper, and I was ready to call the feds. Because I was like, ew. Ew. That's it. I like her.
Him, not so
Not
much.
No.
Well, then,
Was,
yep, then they did the appropriate. They got the appropriate reaction from you because Dominic has the most heat when he is a heel in this industry, and every time he speaks, like no matter where he goes, everyone just boos him out the building. It is so
good.
fantastic to watch, which is the point because he is the bad guy, so to speak. It would take too long to explain the history with how we got to this moment.
I don't need to know.
All I will say is that he was an innocent boy, and then he got choked out by Rhea Ripley's thighs, and then it just spiraled into a lot.
Well, first of all, he needs to wash his hair.
Oh my!
Because it looks like he's like he's been living in like an RV somewhere. So
It's yeah.
yeah.
He had that. We'll talk afterwards because there's a lot that
Now
of
I can.
what
Now,
happened.
you sent you sent a text saying that you like her and you have a crush on her. I can see that.
Well, this iteration for
She's
sure.
one, she's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
One, she's pretty, and two, I like a powerful woman.
Yes.
And I like that. But he's got to go.
Oh, first we always make yeah.
Bleh.
Me and the other boys like we make jokes because like a lot of us love Rhea Ripley and we have a crush on her, and obviously Dominic's not her real boyfriend. They're just like characters. But we make the joke like we always make the joke, and I'll send you a picture later because we make a joke. It's like we love Rhea Ripley, but I'm not willing to fight her actual boyfriend for her because her boyfriend's a wrestler in AEW, and I'm not willing to fight him because he will crush me in an instant.
I'm not willing to die.
But if once I show you the picture though, I'm like he kind of cute too though. So
Okay, fair enough.
I'll send you that. So ultimately, this segment served of what we would get later at the end when they revealed all the matches. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be fun. And then we get this weird "This is America" vignette with Mustafa Ali telling the people, the audience, why he should be the next NXT North American champion. Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out, right? It was corny. It was weird. It was hokey. But honestly, given everything that the main roster made Ali do when he was up at the main roster before coming back to NXT, I kind of actually am okay with getting behind this gimmick because everything else has been trash with him. And it's so unfair because he is so talented in the ring.
I think this is the point when I was like, God, they talk a lot. They talk a lot. They fight less and talk more now than they did back in the day. Back in the day, it was like, hey, you stupid. I mean, it's like there was no talking. It was like, you open your mouth to me, you disrespect me, I'm going to hit you with a chair. Now it's like, I'm going to monologue like a villain. It's like, what was it? The Corbin dude. He got in there and he just started talking on that mic. And I was like, why has no one hit him with a chair yet?
Oh my gosh, you and John would be the perfect people to have this conversation with because he absolutely hates Baron Corbin's mic skills. He's like, it's like he's like,
they're horrible.
It's like it's a talking piece of cardboard trying to speak. Like it's so wooden. It's so like not. There's no inflection.
But I was like that through a lot of them though. I was like, gosh, they talk a lot, and I want less lip and more slap. You know, it's like I get the talking. I do. I understand it, but my God, they talk a lot.
Yeah,
like
they do.
I was like 60% of this event was them talking to each other. I was just like,
that is very fair. And you know, now that I think about it, it kind of makes sense because usually, and this is across all of the weekly television shows for all the promotion too, the episode before a big pay-per-view or a big like TV special always tends to have a lot of promo works we've come to notice because half the time it's mostly just wrestling and some talking, but usually all the talking is usually reserved before like the week before or a couple days before the big pay-per-view or the event, which you know sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't necessarily need to. But because it's a TV special, it's not like they know which matches are going to be happening at the paper, like they do a pay-per-view. Because then they're just like, we got to scramble But yeah, there was a lot of talking. Some of it was good. Some of it
Yeah,
was
some of it was like, oh my god, someone hit him with a chair. Uh, and there wasn't enough chair hitting, by the way. Um, but because in the 80s, the chair was the best thing to use.
mm-hmm.
I had so many folding chairs come flying through there. But I was just like, okay, some of those monologue-y moments, they should have put those in like vignettes, like between matches, not like,
Like
here,
actual
I'm going to
use
tell
up in
you,
ring
like,
screen time.
yeah, I was like, when Corbin was sitting there talking for 12 years, I was like, we could have watched 3 different matches already. I mean,
Yeah,
seriously. And
yeah.
it's like, shut up, dude. It's like, I don't care. I don't care who you have beef with. If you have beef with them, say, hey, I have beef with you. I'm
Let's
going
fight.
to beat your butt in the ring. Let's do it.
And they have done it before, so yeah, so that one for sure. But this Mustafa Ali one, like, I'm I'm just happy that as much as like this is the weirdest gimmick to give him, honestly, at least their NXT has been using him okay, because man, main roster doesn't know what to do with him. So I'm happy to see this. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
And back in my day, because I'm an old coot, if something like that had happened, like Ali sitting there at his podium doing his thing, see, back in my day, somebody like Jim Hacksaw Dugan would have come through that screen with a 2x4 and hit him in the head. I mean, it's like, interrupt these things. That's the thing, that my thing is, like, when Corbin was given his whatever the hell speech he was given, we should have seen a 40-ounce bottle come flying across there and hit him in the face. I mean, it's like, you interrupt it because it's like, we don't want to hear you talk. Shut up. Body slam. I mean, as opposed to, I'm going to sit here and he's one of the worst talkers in the world, other than Van Wagner or whatever the hell. It literally sounded like a low intelligence barbarian. I was just like, oh my god, please shut up. I was like, somebody hit them, please.
Yeah, but thankfully
So yeah,
we didn't have to sit through that too long because I enjoyed it for what it was. Only because I'm a big Mustafa Ali fan, and I'm just happy that he's getting used correctly since he's been with the company the last 7 years. But I understand why people like wouldn't like it because I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. This is a weird kind of character development, but all right, we'll see what happens next with it.
fair.
So
I
if
just wanted,
yeah.
I just wanted like I wanted someone to pick up a podium and hit him with it. I was just like, I don't know. The guy. I mean, he was great. He was a good speaker, and it was a good, for what it was really good. But I was very much like, this is like valuable, like, wrestling time that we're taking up with these monologues.
For sure.
Like, I don't know. Do little vignettes with that shit.
That is
leave ring time for like wrestling.
that is very, very true.
So
All right. So
continue.
so next, in my opinion, like I love the women's fights, but just because I'm big fans of these next two men, this was this I would consider this my match of the night, and this is Wesley versus Dijak.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the reason why it's because they've been in NXT for quite some time. I have seen their work and have become big fans of them. But this is when you say this is a number one contendership match, I need to see anything and everything. Like you're fighting for a shot at the championship. And if you win, you get to fight for the championship. So both contenders need to go balls to the wall and do anything and everything to win. And my God, these two, Wes and Dijak, to anytime they're in the ring together, because it's not the first time they've fought together like this. It's always going to be one of my favorite things, and this did not disappoint.
And the more important reason that this was the best fight of the evening is because it was sexy AF. I have never in my life never have I been so aroused in a wrestling match like I was in this one. There was hair pulling, hands going down pants. I mean, it was like, I was like, whew, are y'all gonna wrestle or are you gonna like do it? Because I'm here for both, truly. But I'm sorry, but when Dijak grabbed Wes's hair that first time, I was like, I think I even sent it to you. Then go hair grabber, or maybe it was Wes that grabbed him, and then he grabbed Wes later.
Either way,
it was like and I'll agree with you. This one was probably the best fight of the night because they went all out, and it was great to watch, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and my money was on Wes because he's my Coco King, and but I was actually quite impressed with this fight. The theatrics of it were great. The believability was probably a little less, and that's only because I think Wes at some point was supposedly his arm was pulled out of socket, but it really wasn't. And I mean, he played well with it until suddenly it was like, oh, I'm going to pop it back in place, and he did. And then all of a sudden he was doing all kinds of things with it, and I was like, no. It's like, that's not how that works. But outside of that, I thought this was a great match. I really did like this one.
Yeah,
you're right. I would agree with you. I think this was the highlight of the night.
Yeah, as soon as they announced that these two were fighting last week, I'm like, oh, I'm in for another good one. And what I liked is that this match not only served that purpose of telling the story who's going to be the number one contender to face Carmelo at Heatwave next week, but we got the secondary development of a feud that's been happening recently because Eddie comes out.
That's right.
And and he's just standing there, and Dijak kind of gets in Eddie's face where he ducks, and it gives Wes the ability to, I want to say it's a Hurricane Rana, where he literally jumps onto Dijak and throws him with in a Hurricane Rana with the legs into the steps. I was like,
into the steps.
Yes.
That was great. Yeah. That was a brutal fight. I mean, if it, brutal, quote unquote. Because at one point, Dijak picks Wes up and throws him in the gallery, and then for a second there, it looked like he was gonna go pick up the steps. Did you see him go to look like he was gonna pick the top step up?
Yeah.
And I was all like, was he about to? It's like, and I think that's when Eddie came. Isn't that? That's when Eddie.
That's when Eddie came out. Yeah.
Yeah, and distracted him, and then here you see Wes come flying off of that barricade and just wrap around his face, and then just twisted him right into it. I was like, oh my Lord.
Yeah, and then of course one of my favorite things is the finishing sequence too. Wes going to the top and then doing the spinal tap where he just rotates enough and then lands on Dijak for the win. I'm just like, Wes, this is why I love you so much.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful fight. It really was, in many ways. But it was a beautiful fight. There's three very yummy men involved. But I mean, but the moves were great. The theatrics were on point. Truly.
Right.
Truly. God, it was so good.
It was, and I was just like, I have all this adrenaline because I'm like,
I know.
I yell at my TV screen. I was just like, yes, do that. Oh my God.
I know, I was too. I was like, oh, damn. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I was. Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it was so great. And then, of course, like we said, Wes picking up the victory. So he will be facing Carmelo next week for the NXT Championship at Heatwave. And we'll get into that because Wes was not done tonight because we get a final segment at the end, which we'll get into. So we'll just run through because the next part was a bunch of vignettes, and then we kind of got a match that didn't really result in an actual result. But so Dragon Lee and Lyra Valkyria talked to each other, which was really awkward in a little bit because Dragon Lee thought Lyra was hitting on him, but that wasn't the case. And I was like, WWE, really? I was like, come on. I know he's Latin, but can we stop trying to make every Latin superstar the heartthrob? And I appreciate that Lyra's you got it twisted. That's not what we're talking about here. But ultimately, they accept the challenge. So Rhea and Dominic versus Dragon Lee and Lyra at Heatwave next week. Yes, give it to me now. I'm excited, especially if that means we get more Rhea versus Lyra because those two can go. And I'm excited for that. We get a vignette with Ilya Dragunov, the Mad Dragon of NXT, about how he's gonna destroy Trick Williams. And I was just like, Trick, I love you, but I'm like sending a prayer because you about to get your ass beat. I hope it's closer than I think it's gonna be, but Ilya is gonna destroy you.
Yikes.
And then we kind of got a match, but we didn't get a match because it ended in a DQ due to an interference from Yabba Dabba Dabba, as I call him.
Yeah, that dude. Okay.
I was upset because I was like, you have two of my favorites. You have strong blonde boy Tyler Bate taking on big Scottish man Joe Coffey. And I was just like, yes, give me British wrestling right now. And then Dabba ruined it like 8 minutes in by having to qualification. I'm like, why?
I was like, what was the purpose of it? I didn't understand why he did it.
I'm like, Dabba doesn't have a feud with either one of them, so I was just like,
so he just randomly walked into a match going, hey, I'm gonna disrupt it. I mean, it made no sense to me. Because that's what I was saying. There was no beef to be had. So I was like,
there's no pre-existing like feud that has happened either. If anything, Tyler and Joe have beef with each other through history of, them wrestling in the, independent scene in the UK and all that. And even on television, they like have fought each other before. And yeah, this was like, if I had to pick like a low moment, I was like, this was the WTF moment for me. I'm like, this makes no sense from a narrative perspective. I was like,
it made none. It was like a drop-in scene. And I'm like, what? I mean,
sure, okay.
Is Dabba, is he trying to start beef with these people? I mean, is that what this is for?
Maybe, but I was like, I need to hear the rationale behind this decision.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
And if I'm being honest, I'm like, Yabba Dabba Dabba, I don't think it was a smart idea. I mean, Tyler Bate's gonna be mad, but he's a baby face, so like he's gonna be the good guy approach to it. But Joe Coffey is a heel, and that man and the rest of the Gallus boys are also big men like that. I'm not sure you want the Scottish boys coming. Oh no, the Welsh boys, because I think they're all from Wales. So I want to be.
Oh, they're Welsh. Nice. But it didn't make any sense.
Yeah. As a side note, I'm probably gonna get in so much trouble for this, but like, I have to really listen when Gallus and Joe Coffey and them like do promos. Because of that thick accent, I'm just like, okay, I need to pay attention because the accents sometimes I'm like, I don't.
You're not gonna get in trouble for that because the Welsh accent is extremely difficult.
So sometimes I have to either put on subtitles or I have to rewatch their promos over and over again. It's like, okay, that's what they said. Got it. All right.
Even sometimes subtitles can't understand it.
No, but we'll see where this goes. But I'm just like, oh, okay.
It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
And then
truly, it was just like, what the hell?
It was a thing that happened this show. So we're in the parking lot in NXT now. Just as a side note, I'm going to let you know the most dangerous place in America is not in Florida. It's not in like the usual suspect place. The NXT parking lot in professional wrestling lore is the most dangerous spot because that's where people get jumped, people get attacked. There have been a couple of times in the last couple of weeks where people have been kidnapped as well. Like, it is the most dangerous place in America. So if you go to the NXT,
none of that happened.
I know. If you go to the NXT parking lot, you guys be careful because something's gonna happen. But the backstage interviewer, we don't even get a face recognition for him. He's interviewing Baron, and then out comes two tanned Braun Breaker. I'm like, sir, you look like you got sunburned. I love you, but no. And he basically comes up to Baron. It's like, yo, bro, like, you're going to fight Von Wagner, but I still have beef with him. And Baron's just like, well, if you have a problem with it, you can come watch next week. And I was like, oh, we're getting an interference, aren't we? I'm like, damn it. And then this is going to turn into a triple threat. And I'm like, nobody asked for this. I don't want this.
No, I literally don't want anything to do with that dude. He talks too damn much. And he looks like a suppository. So.
Oh my. Yeah, I'm just like, we're starting to wind down. So next we get like Again, lots of talking. Nathan Frazier with the hard-hitting truths, which gets interrupted by Metaphor, the faction, with Noam Dar, Ora Mensa, Jakari Jackson, and Lash Legend.
Oh my God, that was the stupidest thing I have ever watched.
Oh, it was for sure stupid, but Metaphor is supposed to be stupid, and I'm kind of here for it.
Oh my God. No, I mean, it was like, I'm not angry at it. It was literally like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever watched, and I'm here for it. And I think I even made the comment. I was like, "Did that say that they were live from the moon?"
Yes.
And I was like, "The fuck?" I was like, and then as it went on, I was like, "Oh, I see what he's doing now. Okay, I see the lie thing or whatever whatever it was. He's the button he.
It's like fraud, fraud.
Yeah. It was funny. It was actually, and then it got funny, and then I was like, "This is ridiculous."
This whole feud has been ridiculous, but like in the best way possible. So,
oh my God, it was funny. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. So we'll go over what the card for Heat Wave is, because there's actually a lot of matches, and we're getting these two in that. So we'll talk about it in a bit. Next, this is where we get the other women's match, and then this is where we can talk about the Screaming Blonde, because that is Thea Hale. God. Thea Hale takes on JC Jane, and then Andre Chase and Duke Hudson of Chase U is there with Thea. So we here at the Bi-Conics love Thea Hale. She is 19 years old, and my co-host for Raw, Monday Night Raw, says that we love Thea Hale. She is adorable. The best way to describe her, she's like if she was a energetic puppy in human form, because she normally
wait. She's 19.
She is 19 years old.
Oh Lord, honey, she needs to put some moisturizer on, because I thought she was in her 30s.
No, Thea is 19.
Holy crap.
Yes, and of course, I mean, JC's kind of close in the height, but if you put Thea next to anybody, she really is that short.
Wow. I never would have guessed that she was 19.
Never. Yeah, she is 19, and I will say, I was like, I mean,
you go, girl.
She's a phenomenal wrestler, and she's like,
she was fun. I enjoyed her.
Oh, her match at Great American Bash against, we'll talk about her in a little bit, against the NXT Barbie Tiffany. Like, they had a submission match at Great American Bash, and it was actually really good. And it was actually at that pay-per-view that stemmed of why, like, loud blonde Thea Hale is upset with, Towel Gate and everything. Because that got brought up during this match, and then during the segment too. It's like Towelgate. So Towelgate was because Andre Chase, during the submissions match, Thea wasn't giving up, and she was like in this like submission move for a couple of minutes, and so to prevent her from getting hurt even further, Andre Chase, like the professor of Chase U, threw in the towel to stop the match so Thea didn't get hurt, and Thea was pissed. She's like, "How dare you throw in the towel?" She went from being depressed to being super angry, and she's still angry at Andre Chase. We got a little tease, because I'm like, are we turning Andre Chase heel? Because towards the finishing sequence of this, he goes onto the mat and he's by the turnbuckle, and it looks like he's trying to take it off. But then when Thea catches him, he says, "Oh no, I'm fixing it," which allows JC to roll Thea up for a surprise roll up for the win. And I'm just like, are we teasing that Andre Chase is slowly going down the dark path of being a bad guy because he doesn't believe in Thea anymore? I was like, ooh, let's go.
I just thought he was an idiot.
I mean, that's kind of his shtick. Like,
which I love.
Part of the other part of his shtick too that makes me laugh all the time is he's one of the few characters. Like, part of his shtick is like he'll curse. And so every time he curses, like in backstage promos or video vignettes, they bleep it out. Just like, what the beep are you doing?
That's funny.
Chase U is Chase U as a faction is stupid, because it's literally just a college personified into people, like the stereotypes and everything. It's so stupid, right. But I love it. And I was just like, I can't believe we're actually getting this stupid faction, and I'm kind of enjoying it, but man, Thea was not having it afterwards, and she stormed out of there when that match was over.
I know. I was like, ooh, the towel strikes again.
Towelgate, part 2.
Towelgate. I was like, oh my God. This is also when I made the comment about the women still look like dominatrix hookers after all these years.
So, so the fun story is that JCJ, well, because her and another women's wrestler, which hopefully you'll see soon, Gigi Dolan, they used to be in a faction on NXT called Toxic Attraction. So it was like this all female faction, but they were all hot. Was basically what it was, and it was led by at that time the NXT Women's Champion Mandy Rose, who held that title for almost a whole entire year, and then she got let go because WWE is very bad at trying to control their talents and what they do in their personal time and try to get revenue off that. Mandy Rose was posting some. Let's just say she had a subscription service to a certain site, and WWE said she needed to take it down, and then she did. But because she didn't do it like the way they wanted her to do it, because she was still getting money off it, supposedly they let her go like towards the tail end of last year, which was crazy. And so I was just like, damn. But the point being, JC was part of that faction, so they were all hot. And they ran the women's division, and then they all kind of separated afterwards. Like Gigi and her had a feud where they broke up, and JC turned heel. She literally threw Gigi through a door. It was crazy. And then and then their feud culminated in a steel cage match, which was excellent.
Nice.
But JC picks up the win. Thea is pissed at Andre Chase.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I'm kind of here for the tension, and I'm interested to see how this drama unfolds. Even in my professional wrestling life, I'm messy.
Oh my god! If you're going where I think you're going next, this is probably one of my favorite moments in the night.
So we get
Like
we get part 2 of the Los Lotharios telenovela series, where we actually get footage shown of Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo's like grandfather, because like they're actual cousins, they're related, and we get this whole dream sequence of like them reliving and then hearing their grandfather's voice and everything, and then like just culminating and recapping what's happening so far with Humberto yelling at Angel. It's like, we look stupid. It's like, it was very dramatic, and I was here for it. I was like, this is stupid, but I love it so much.
I was like, oh, infighting. It's like, oh, it's never good when a family splits up.
I was laughing so hard, Will, but like in the best way possible. I was just like, if this is what we're getting for the next couple weeks until they reconcile, I'm here for it. And what
absolutely.
And what I'm hoping is now that Los Lotharios, which is their tag team name, are in NXT, if that means we get a more serious version of them, I'm here for it. I want them to run this tag team division. But man, this was so cheesy, but I loved it.
It was so like pull at the heartstrings. It was like, here's our grandfather. You know, we're so proud to be from this, but I think we look stupid out there. You're making us look stupid. No, I'm not. It's because of this. And I'm like, wow, this is like...
I was like, they gave this production.
They did.
They had a budget.
They were like, you know, imposing like the grandfather's picture over everything. It was like what is going on?
Honestly, like this is my favorite segment because we got one last week and it was even more dramatic because then they had like the singular tear like trope like happen. I was like, yes. I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. I want full on stupidity in my professional wrestling. And it was so
and then there was like at one point they woke up like in separate beds, like their clocks were on opposite sides of the bed. And I was like, they both like woke up and looked at the clock and looked off into the distance. I was like, what is happening right now?
This is the best intro to theater final project I have ever seen in my life.
Yes. Oh my, yeah, it was like independent film project is what it was. It's like
I was like, we're gonna make sure to show this to all aspiring actors. Be like, you need to give like nonverbal too. It's just like this was. They didn't say a single thing. They sold it to me with their facial expressions.
Yep. All we heard was the grandfather's voice, I think, right?
I was like,
it was really well done. I'm not gonna lie. It was cheesy as hell, but it was well done.
God, it was so beautiful. So
good job, guys.
Exactly. So then we get, as you call her, Barbie, Tiffany. She does a quick vignette. I'm surprised we're not getting a match with her defending the title against somebody at Heatwave, but that's fine.
Actually, I referred to her as Barbie Quinn.
Barbie Quinn. Yes.
Like a mix between Barbie and Harley Quinn, because that's what she looked like. I'm here for it.
Yeah, man, I have become a Tiffany fan so hard. Like, even when she first debuted like a year and a half ago, again, it's one of those things where when you see her wrestle, Will, she has this moonsault where she does a backflip off the top rope. Like, there's a couple of women on the main roster who do it. Tiffany, to me, has the best one because it's the cleanest looking. Like, the form and everything is perfect, which makes sense because she comes from a gymnastics background. So it makes a lot of sense. But Tiffany's character development, honestly, this iteration of her, I'm happy we've got, because where she started, her character was like, I'm a daddy's girl, and she would use the term daddy a lot. She's like, daddy's buying me this, daddy's buying me that. I'm like, I know you're going for like rich daddy, but I'm like, are you a sugar baby? Is that what I'm supposed to be getting? And then she went into like full on from Mean Girls. She's like, get in, loser, we're going shopping. And I was like, listen, if you quote Mean Girls and if we get like the iconic she doesn't even go here moment at some point, we're good. But now she's kind of taken on this persona. She's like, I am NXT's Barbie. I'm like, all the girls want to be me. I have everything and I want what they can't have, this title. And I'm like, perfect, right there.
Yep.
Okay.
It was good.
Yes. So the last thing we got tonight was this contract signing where I was like, yep, Carmelo just quoted TLC with the don't go chasing
before that,
water.
Hold on, before you go there,
let's talk
have to talk about the moment prior to that. where he is like signing things and Wesley comes up and just like slaps everything off the table.
And like the table falls down too because Wes is like,
he literally dragged the table out of there. I was like, did he just take the table?
That
he did. He like.
So okay, so like this is a weird thing for me, but I love when backstage segments to the in-ring like live in front of the audience thing has continuity because he was Wes was dragging the table from the backstage segment and then he continued to drag that thing into the ring. I was like,
the ring.
I love little bits of continuity like that because it tells me that they're paying attention and they're telling a story. But yeah, Wes pulls that thing up and then he calls Carmelo to come down to the ring. So Carmelo comes out and then we had this back and forth. And it was during this, you mentioned, you're like, damn, Wesley carries himself very well on the mic. I was like,
he was so well spoken. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just was like listening to him talk. I was like, wow, you go, boy. And I was like, and I think that's when I was like, I'm so glad he's not perpetuating a stereotype, which is, sometimes what happens, the, thuggish or, those really, really bad and he wasn't. He was so well spoken. He held himself well. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
I was very impressed.
Wes definitely carried himself well during this promo. And, like, Carmelo has a certain archetype, but I've been following Carmelo's journey in NXT for the last year and a half, 2 years now. And I know he could do promos, and he still carried himself. But man, Wes killed it with the promo. But Carmelo served his purpose. It's like, and the crazy thing is that neither one of them is technically the heel, because usually it's always heel versus face. Both of them are kind of in between for me because they can go either way. But I appreciated that nobody like. I thought that Wes is gonna put Carmelo through this table, but no. Because Carmelo kept giving Wes backhanded compliments, which I was like, good, that's your character. You're just like, nobody understands the pressure of being this champion, and you were champion, but you're not this champion. And then I also like that Wes had retorts for everything Carmelo was saying. It's like, need I remind you who beat you for that title and who is the longest reigning? It was just great. And then, of course, they signed the contract. Carmelo does the thing where he holds the title up. I was like, oh, we still got like a couple minutes. We got like a minute and a half. I was like, who's going through this table? And as Carmelo says the last thing, Wes just hops up onto the middle of the table, stomps that thing in half, and just stares at Carmelo. And it's just like, I got your number, dude. Like, let's not play those games.
Yep. And yes, Carmelo did quote TLC.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Yeah, we were both like, did he? I was like, he did not just drop TLC.
I'm like, I love my
Yeah.
shoes. And of course, this they have the stare off, but there was no fist fighting. There was nobody at the table. And honestly, I'm like, save it all for next week for this match. And that was the last thing we got as NXT went off the air for this week.
Yeah.
So, before we get into final thoughts, like I mentioned, we do have Heat Wave happening next week, so I'm excited. Hopefully, if Will is free, that he gets to review Heat Wave, which is NXT's next big special TV show. And these are the matches that we have set for it. So, starting with the non-championship matches, we have Baron Corbin versus Von Wagner. Just announced after yesterday, we have Ivy Nile taking on the Rock's daughter, Ava Rain. So I'm like, yes, I'm excited. I hope Ivy wins. And then we get to the funeral of Trick Williams as he dies at the hands of Ilya Dragunov. Man, I'm gonna send you clips because Ilya versus Carmelo at the Great American Bash was phenomenal. But Trick is gonna die. I was just like, oh, it was nice. So now, and then we have Dominic and Rhea taking on Dragon Lee and Lyra. And then for championship matches, I'm excited to hear your input. So for the NXT Heritage Cup, Nathan Frazier versus Noam Dar. The Heritage Cup has some very interesting rules, and I'm interested to get your take on those when we review Heat Wave. And then, of course, I mean, all the matches I think are going to be fun in their own right, but I'm telling you, Carmelo versus West is probably going to steal the show for me because those two are awesome. Those two are going to kill it. So I'm
very much ready for that.
I'm excited for Heat Wave. I think all these matches are going to be fun, but man, that championship match between Carmelo and West, I think will probably steal the show, and I hope I'm right. All right, Will. Yeah. So like we do for every review here on the Bi-Conics, final thoughts, and then let's give our ratings out of 10 minis. So minis is the screen name for our co-host Evan, because we use him as our litmus test. So what do you give out of a 10, what do you give this NXT, and final thoughts as to why?
Okay, well, it's hard for me to score because I don't have a lot of context. But what I will do is looking from where I came from to where I am now, I would give this the overall. I'd give it about a 7. And the reason that is because again, I don't have context. So the next one I watch will probably be higher because now I'll have context. But I put it at a 7 only because they talk way too damn much. And I think that's one of my biggest issues, actually. That's probably my biggest issue, is that there's a lot of talking and not enough wrestling. And I really wanted more. And I actually kind of wanted, and this is me coming from, the 80s, early 90s, is I really wanted more disruption, like chaos. That was one of the great things about wrestling in my day, is that it was constantly chaotic. There was never a down moment. There was never a, here, let's take 20 minutes and talk about something. It was literally like I was saying, here, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to start saying something. And then you have literally a chair come out of nowhere and hit this guy in the hip. And then there's a huge brawl. You have 8 guys in the ring suddenly whooping each other. It's that sort of thing that I was like, I really want more of that. And that may come from one of the other branches. I don't know. But as a whole, I enjoyed the matches. I think the women's matches were more fun to watch in a wrestling sort of standpoint. The men's were fun to watch theatrically. Except the West Dijak one was fantastic. I mean, truly was the high point of it. Because it had, not just did it have in-ring, it had out-of-ring, it had acrobatics, it had stage theatrics. Then you had, the tertiary character coming in to distract, and it was just like, oh gosh, what's happening next? First I was like, is Eddie gonna like get involved? Or is he? But he didn't. He just stood there, and it was like, oh my god, this is brilliant. And then here comes Wes flying out of nowhere, and it was really good. So yeah, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. Maybe I'll give it an 8. I'm being a little too harsh. And that's just me coming in from the 80s when people died. But overall I really enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot, and it's great because I already have like people that I really like, and then there's people that I really don't like, and I love that. Like characters, not people, but the characters. It's like, oh, I really like this person, but this guy is really on the nerves. Like Corbin is Baron Corbin. He's going to be that guy for me. If he walks out, I'm just going to be like, just hit it with something. It's like, if you don't, he's going to start talking, and you need to stop that. So, and I'm actually kind of excited to see Von Wagner's style of wrestling. Because I only got to see him standing there. I never actually get to see him do anything. So I'm curious to see that fight.
Yeah, Baron Corbin's about to get tabled.
Yes, he is. He probably needs it.
Probably.
But I mean, yeah, I really did. My final thoughts were: it was fun, it was exciting. Yeah, it had its moments, but all performances do. And I really enjoyed the women's fights, even the screamy women.
Thea Hale.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would give this a solid 8 out of 10 as well. Kind of piggybacking off of your sentiments, there was a lot of fun. This was a fun one. Again, because I normally watch this on a daily basis, I tend to be a little harsher, but I always give like the go home shows before a big TV special or one of the NXT pay-per-views a little bit of grace, because you're trying to finalize storylines and the feuds that are currently going into said pay-per-views. Honestly, I always enjoy NXT. We actually get more than one women's match every week in NXT, which is very appreciative. I always say that I wish they got more time, but overall, fun time. Wes versus Dijak was my highlight of the whole entire episode. That was my match of the night. And yeah, I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Will, I'm so happy that you have hopped on to the NXT train, and I'm looking forward to you being my co-host so I can finally banter back and forth with somebody. It gets lonely just talking to myself half the time.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But that is going to be it for this week's NXT review. If you like this long form review, make sure to hit that bell notification on the YouTube channel and check out our other long form reviews where we cover all of the wrestling product with all of the Bi-Conics boys. If you're looking for some pay-per-view reviews, we do that as well. Make sure to go check out our SummerSlam review where we talk massive amounts of shit about the pay-per-view. But we also are joined by our other special guest who has now become a staple, just like Will here, Luis, who gives his perspective as somebody who actually trained to be a wrestler. So that background was an interesting conversation. So check that out. You can also follow us across the social medias at Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it now. It's still the Bird app to me. At BC WrestlePod, where you can get notifications and updates when our reviews go live, as well as some behind-the-scenes shenanigans and clips from the reviews. We did upload our recent TK Accountability Corner, where our host JVL yells at Tony Khan and AEW to book the women's division better. It was a hot conversation there. Like, we're very passionate about our women's wrestling. And of course, if you're looking for something different, you can check us out at the Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast, where outside of reviewing TV shows, we just talk anything and everything wrestling. We talk about what some of our favorite matches are, our history with wrestling. And we literally have, as our first episode, we went through and reviewed all the good things of 2022. And we even talked about who were the hottest superstars of the year.
Yes, I think I think I'm gonna have to have a Will's hot corner or something because I'm gonna talk about the hotness of all these wrestlers, men and women both.
So that is going to be a staple for our NXT reviews. Now there will be a segment be like, all right, Will. So who is the hotness this week?
From this week, oh gosh. Okay, so from my personal taste, it would probably be like the Scottish Warrior. Even though we only got a little glimpse, he was still like fresh on my brain and in my loins. Um, Out of the people who played, I would have to say, for many different reasons, would be Wesley. I mean, he really I was kind of like I was on him. He's like my favorite, like right now. Like I'm like in his fan club. Like totally. I will be the Wesley fan club.
Oh,
Just me.
me and you both. Honestly, all of us Bi-Conic boys, we're big fans of Wesley too. But yeah,
Now, out of the ladies in fighting, outside of fighting, like outside of ring, I would have to say Tiffany. She was gorgeous. In the ring, I would have to say, um, was it Dana? Is that her name?
the one that lost the first women's match against Blair. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, she was really pretty. Like I was like, "Ooh, you're cute." So I was really kind of struck. So those would be my two ladies
I
for
love it.
sure.
I love it so much.
Yes,
Will, this was such a fun review, but
it was.
yeah, I'm so excited to have you along as my co-host now. But that is going to be the end of our review. So as always, from all of us here at the Bi-Conics, especially your NXT review team, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and until the next review, remember, adios, sayonara, and until next time, ta-ta for now.
Bye bye.